There is a silent truth that only a small fraction of people in this world ever fully realize. Abundance is not created, earned, or achieved. It is accessed. It is not a reward for effort, luck, or external qualification. It exists as a natural frequency that some individuals unconsciously align with, and others unconsciously block. The difference between the two is not intelligence, privilege, talent, strategy, or even opportunity. The difference lies in the invisible patterns that govern their thoughts, emotional responses, internal identity, and daily habits. The universe does not dispense abundance randomly. It mirrors the dominant vibration of your inner world. Your mind is not merely a storage system for memories or a processing machine for rational thought. It is a broadcasting instrument, a receiver and transmitter of energy, constantly interacting with the quantum field that surrounds, penetrates, and composes all things. Every belief, emotion, and thought carries a vibrational signature that communicates directly with the infinite field of potential. When the internal signal you send is coherent, stable, and aligned with abundance, wealth naturally flows toward you. When the signal is chaotic, contradictory, or dominated by lack, wealth remains potential rather than experience. Most people do not lack resources. They lack alignment. They do not lack opportunity. They lack inner permission. They are not limited by what exists in physical reality. They are limited by what exists in their internal vibrational architecture. Earl Nightingale was right when he said that human beings become what they think about. But Bob Proctor went deeper by revealing that thinking is not merely conceptual. It is vibrational, emotional, and identity-based. You do not attract what you consciously want. You attract what your subconscious recognizes as normal, safe, and familiar. This is why abundance is not achieved through sudden bursts of effort, motivational highs, or temporary discipline. It is cultivated through deeply ingrained mental patterns and habits that repeatedly condition your subconscious mind to accept wealth as normal. Habits are not behaviors. They are identity reinforcement loops. Every repeated habit becomes a signal that tells the subconscious, "This is who we are." And your subconscious will defend identity over desire every single time because identity is survival to the mind. Therefore, if you desire abundance but unconsciously identify with scarcity, struggle, fear, or limitation, your subconscious will sabotage any attempt to expand, not because it is against your success, but because it is loyal to your comfort zone. Comfort is the gravitational field of identity. To step into abundance, therefore, you must not force wealth. You must become the version of yourself who naturally receives it. The quantum field responds not to need, but to embodiment. What feeds the flow of abundance are not isolated big actions, heroic moments, or lucky circumstances, but subtle, repetitive, unseen patterns that shape your frequency without the awareness of your conscious mind. These patterns include the way you interpret events, the way you speak to yourself when no one hears, the assumptions you make about life, the emotional baseline you habitually return to, the meaning you assign to challenges, the level of expectation you carry into the future, and the degree of permission you give yourself to experience prosperity. Every wealthy individual on this planet, whether they consciously understand quantum principles or not, operates with internal habits that align with abundance. They assume expansion rather than contraction. They believe opportunities grow with awareness rather than diminish with competition. They inherently trust that their contribution is valuable and their desires are valid. They treat wealth as a byproduct of aligned energy, not as a scarce trophy to be chased. They see themselves as creators, not reactors. They live in cause, not effect. This mental calibration is not arrogance, it is coherence. The quantum field is neutral. It does not reward the worthy or punish the unworthy. It reflects frequency. There is no morality, fairness, debt, negotiation, or emotional appeal in the field. It mirrors what you believe the world to be and who you believe yourself to be within it. If you believe wealth is rare, it becomes rare for you. If you believe you must struggle to earn money, money will require struggle. If you believe you are unworthy of wealth, you will unconsciously reject it even when it appears. The universe is not testing you, it is matching you. This is why the deepest transformation is not behavioral, it is identity-based. You cannot change your life with logic alone, because logic does not penetrate the subconscious. The subconscious learns only through repetition, emotional intensity, and experiential reinforcement. When your habits change, your identity changes. When your identity changes, your frequency changes. When your frequency changes, your reality reorganizes itself to match the new pattern you broadcast. The habits that feed abundance are not flashy, dramatic, or externally impressive. They are subtle internal disciplines, mental choices, and energetic commitments. They include the daily practice of focusing on possibilities instead of limitations, creating calmness in the nervous system rather than urgency, noticing abundance instead of lack, making decisions from expansion rather than fear, holding faith in the unseen rather than worshiping the visible, and operating from the truth that your inner state is the cause and your outer world is the effect. The most powerful habit of abundance is emotional self-regulation. Wealth does not belong to those who think perfectly. It belongs to those who can stabilize emotion regardless of external fluctuation. Your emotional baseline is your vibrational signature. When your inner world holds peace, trust, confidence, gratitude, and expansion, you become a magnet for wealth. When your emotional baseline is fear, urgency, doubt, guilt, or frustration, you broadcast scarcity even if you speak abundance-related words. Abundance is a state, not a consequence. When you practice becoming emotionally aligned with abundance, the universe recognizes your inner reality as truth and responds accordingly. This state is cultivated through mental habits like affirming desired identity, imagining desired reality, embodying desired feelings, releasing emotional attachment to outcomes, and choosing meaning that empowers rather than diminishes. But the most crucial pattern of all is the habit of self-permission. Wealth cannot enter a life where the subconscious believes it is unsafe, undeserved, unlikely, or temporary. To feed the flow of abundance, you must repeatedly affirm with emotional conviction that you are allowed to prosper, that it is natural for money to circulate through your life, that you are not a threat to wealth, and wealth is not a threat to you. Your assignment, though invisible, is real. Build a mental environment where abundance feels like home, not like a guest. When abundance becomes identity, wealth becomes inevitable. When wealth becomes inevitable, reality reorganizes without force. There is a moment on the journey of consciousness where a man realizes that wealth was never an external chase, but a silent arrangement between the mind, the subconscious, and the energetic field that surrounds him. At this point, money no longer behaves like a physical object to be pursued, but instead reveals itself as a frequency-based phenomenon, responsive not to effort, but to alignment. This is where the quantum language of wealth begins to reveal itself. The truth is that the subconscious mind, which operates beneath every conscious choice and beneath every visible result, does not respond to wishes, hope, or attempts. It only responds to identity, repetition, internal emotion, and the vibrational command one emits without words. Earl Nightingale understood this when he declared that we become what we think about. And Bob Proctor expanded it by teaching that the subconscious is the internal factory of all manifested life. Wealth is not conceived through effort alone. It is sculpted from within, through the inner programming that silently governs behavior, expectation, perception, and energetic resonance. Most people attempt to achieve financial transformation by changing strategies, jobs, methods, industries, or opportunities. They work harder, they hustle longer, They try new techniques, they invest in new ideas, they adopt new business models, but the outside never permanently changes because the inside remains the same. The subconscious mind still holds the original script, and that script dictates what is allowed, what is rejected, what is retained, and what is lost. This is why some individuals attract money quickly but lose it just as fast, why some earn significantly but cannot keep their wealth, why others achieve sudden breakthroughs followed by long declines, and why many remain stuck in cycles of repetition, even though their external actions evolve. The subconscious mind is the thermostat of reality, and until it is rewritten, no external effort can override it. The quantum field responds to emotional energy, not intellectual desire. Therefore, one must understand that wealth is not manifested by thinking alone, but by feeling, believing, embodying, and identifying with prosperity at the deepest level. The subconscious mind accepts only what is emotionalized, never what is merely spoken or intellectually known. This is why affirmations spoken without emotion fail, why vision boards without internal resonance become visual decorations rather than vibrational commands, and why knowledge rarely produces transformation. Real change requires inner embodiment, the merging of belief, imagination, identity, and emotional certainty. When this convergence happens, the quantum field reorganizes circumstances, ideas, opportunities, coincidences, relationships, timing, intuition, and even perception to align the individual with wealth. To reprogram the subconscious mind, one must first acknowledge that every belief currently installed was once accepted, either through repetition, emotional intensity, or authority. No belief exists in the subconscious by accident. Each was absorbed through experience, observation, trauma, environment, culture, or familial patterns. The subconscious cannot reject during a state of receptive awareness. It can only accept. Children absorb beliefs effortlessly because their brain operates in theta frequency, the same frequency required for subconscious reprogramming and quantum manifestation. Adults must return to this state intentionally through visualization, meditation, repetition, hypnosis, emotional engagement, or deeply focused imagination. The moment the brain enters theta, the subconscious becomes suggestible, and the quantum field becomes responsive. However, most individuals operate the majority of their lives in beta state, logical, analytical, worried, reactive, and survival-oriented. This brainwave pattern prevents access to the subconscious, meaning they attempt to change externally while remaining internally unchanged. They speak affirmations in beta, worry in beta, plan in beta, and fear in beta. But wealth manifestation requires theta, a relaxed, creative, receptive, imaginative, emotionally open vibrational channel. When one learns to intentionally access theta, they gain the ability to rewrite the energetic blueprint that dictates financial experience. Now, consider this. Money is not something you pursue. It is something you magnetize. Pursuit implies separation, distance, lack, and effort. Magnetism implies alignment, attraction, inevitability, and resonance. The subconscious mind determines whether you are vibrationally magnetic or vibrationally resistant to wealth. If wealth is perceived subconsciously as dangerous, immoral, unattainable, overwhelming, or impossible, it will not matter how much effort is applied externally. The subconscious will reject it. The law of vibration is superior to the law of physical effort. This is why certain individuals with less education, fewer resources, and minimal opportunities can rise into wealth, while others with abundance of knowledge and potential remain stuck. Success is not determined by external advantage, but by internal alignment. The subconscious mind creates behavioral autopilot, perceptual filters, emotional tolerance levels, and vibrational patterns. If the subconscious is programmed for scarcity, it will automatically seek, interpret, and attract conditions that align with scarcity. If it is programmed for abundance, it will automatically perceive, select, and magnetize conditions that align with abundance. This leads to the understanding that every financial breakthrough is preceded by a subconscious identity shift. Wealth must first be experienced internally, emotionally, imaginatively, and vibrationally before it appears externally. The subconscious mind does not differentiate between imagination and reality. It accepts both equally, and the quantum field responds to both equally. Therefore, when one repeatedly imagines wealth with emotional depth, sensory detail, and internal certainty, the subconscious programs itself as if the wealth already exists, and the quantum field reorganizes to match it. Emotion is the spiritual password to manifestation. Without emotion, the subconscious remains unmoved. Without emotional intensity, the energy field remains unchanged. Without internal resonance, nothing external is rearranged. This is why individuals must not merely visualize wealth. They must feel wealthy. They must not merely speak prosperity. They must vibrate prosperity. They must not merely desire abundance. They must embody it. To embody abundance means to remove internal contradictions. Many individuals affirm abundance while simultaneously fearing failure, criticizing prosperity, envying success, or expecting disappointment. They speak one frequency while emitting another. The quantum field responds only to the dominant vibration, never to the spoken wish. Emotion is more powerful than logic. Imagination is more powerful than knowledge. Subconscious programming is more powerful than conscious intention. Therefore, the only true path to wealth is the internal transformation of identity. Identity is not who you consciously claim to be. It is who your subconscious believes you are. Wealth flows to the identity that matches it. Poverty clings to the identity that hosts it. Identity is the energetic signature of manifestation, and it is constructed through emotional repetition and internal narrative. If one internally repeats the story of limitation, life will validate limitation. If one repeats the story of expansion, life will validate expansion. The quantum field is a mirror that reflects not what we hope for, but what we are vibrationally committed to. Abundance exists already in the quantum realm, not as a future possibility, but as a present frequency. Reality does not create wealth for the individual, but collapses into wealth for the identity that becomes aligned. This is the mechanism behind the quantum model. The observer does not chase reality. The observer creates it. In this model, wealth is not received as a reward, but expressed as a state of being. When the state is aligned, wealth becomes a natural byproduct. To create this shift, one must intentionally rewrite the inner narrative. The subconscious mind accepts ideas through repetition, emotional impact, and sensory detail. Therefore, financial reprogramming requires daily emotional visualization, not passive daydreaming. The visualization must include the feeling of wealth, the perception of certainty, and the sensory immersion into the experience. One must feel the fabric of abundance, hear the sounds of prosperity, engage the senses of expansion, and create emotional familiarity with wealth. When the subconscious becomes familiar with abundance, it no longer perceives it as foreign. Therefore, it no longer blocks its manifestation. This is why it is imperative to stop focusing on the absence of wealth. Attention is frequency, and frequency is magnetic. When one focuses on lack, they amplify lack. When they observe obstacles, they energize obstacles. The universe does not respond to what we want. It responds to what we repeatedly focus on. Desire without belief attracts absence. Expectation with certainty attracts manifestation. The subconscious mind does not operate through logic. It responds through imagination, emotion, repetition, and identity. Every successful manifestation is a marriage between inner truth and external frequency. Wealth is not granted. It is matched. When identity shifts, expectation shifts. When expectation shifts, perception shifts. When perception shifts, behavior shifts. When behavior shifts, results shift. But the starting point is always the subconscious. The quantum field is not physical, it is informational. It organizes itself around consciousness. When an individual vibrates abundance through consistent emotional identity, the field must respond. This is the hidden law behind quantum wealth, and it has been demonstrated repeatedly by individuals who rose from invisibility to prosperity, not because of circumstance, but because of alignment. Money, therefore, is not the goal. It is the expression of alignment. Wealth is not the pursuit, it is the reflection. Prosperity is not the dream, it is the frequency. Change the inner vibrational signature, and the outer world must follow. This is how the subconscious mind unlocks quantum wealth. There comes a moment on the path of inner transformation when a person must accept that abundance is not something they chase, but something they activate, allow, and embody. The outside world is never the starting point of wealth. It is only the evidence of what has already been accepted internally. Earl Nightingale said that we become what we think about, but Bob Proctor refined it by saying that we must turn thinking into feeling, and feeling into identity, because identity is what controls the subconscious mind. The subconscious does not respond to conscious desire. It responds to inner truth. Desire alone is a signal of separation. Identity is a signal of completion. Wealth does not come from wishing or wanting, but from living mentally and emotionally as if it already exists, because in the quantum dimension, everything already exists. Before wealth becomes physical, it must first become normal in the subconscious mind. And to become normal, it must feel familiar, comfortable, emotionally safe, and mentally acceptable. If wealth feels foreign, unrealistic, too big, too fast, unworthy, or dangerous, the subconscious will block it, repel it, or sabotage it. The mind does not manifest what it wants, it manifests what it is. If one's subconscious identity is still tied to limitation, then the universe must confirm limitation. If the subconscious identity is calibrated to abundance, the universe must confirm abundance. There is no exception to this because this is not positive thinking. This is energetic law. When you understand that wealth is emotional, vibrational, neurological, and subconscious, you stop trying to earn it first and start learning to become it first. The person who tries to earn money while still identifying with lack is emotionally and vibrationally contradicting themselves. It is like trying to inhale while believing that oxygen is limited. The body cannot operate against its programmed belief. Likewise, reality cannot operate against the subconscious identity. One of the most powerful realizations anyone can have is that money is not attracted to effort, it is attracted to alignment. Effort matters in execution, but alignment determines results. This is why two people can put in the same amount of effort yet receive completely different outcomes. The difference is not skill, intelligence, or even opportunity. The difference is subconscious identity and vibrational resonance. When someone believes internally that they are the type of person who succeeds, they subconsciously behave, decide, speak, move, and recognize opportunity differently than someone who believes subconsciously that failure is more likely. There is a hidden element in wealth creation that many never understand. The subconscious mind filters reality based on expectation. Expectation creates perception. Perception creates interpretation, and interpretation determines action. Two people can be presented with the same opportunity, yet one sees potential while the other sees risk. The difference is not reality. It is internal programming. People don't see the world as it is, they see the world as they are. This is why learning about money is not enough. Knowledge without subconscious alignment creates spiritual and emotional friction. It creates the painful state where you know what is possible, but cannot reach it. This is where many remain stuck, not because they lack intelligence, ambition, or desire, but because their subconscious identity has not yet been upgraded to match the wealth they consciously seek. The subconscious mind is like the operating system of a computer. If the system is limited, no application can perform beyond its capacity. You cannot run $1 million life with a scarcity belief system. The next profound truth is that wealth is not created through thoughts alone. Thoughts are simply the ignition. Wealth is created when thoughts generate emotion. Emotion generates belief. Belief generates identity. Identity generates vibration, and vibration magnetizes reality. Many people try to manifest wealth using only thoughts, but thoughts are weak when separated from emotion. The subconscious mind ignores thoughts that are not emotionalized. Emotion is the currency of the subconscious, and vibration is the currency of the quantum field. This means you must feel wealth before you see it. You must believe abundance is natural before it becomes physical. You must trust that the universe is responsive before it responds. The person who doubts, questions, fears, or mentally negotiates their worth is unconsciously affirming the absence of wealth, and the quantum field mirrors that. When you doubt wealth, you vibrate lack. When you fear loss, you vibrate scarcity. When you expect small results, you attract small opportunities. You do not attract what you want. You attract what your subconscious believes is safe. Every limitation that currently exists in your financial life exists only because it is supported by an internal belief. This belief may not be conscious, but it is active. Limiting beliefs are like invisible contracts signed long ago, often without awareness. These beliefs might sound like, money is hard to earn. People like me never become wealthy. I will lose everything eventually. Success requires sacrifice. Rich people are dishonest. If I become wealthy, I will be judged. I am afraid of responsibility, or I don't know enough yet. These beliefs, if believed emotionally, imprint into the subconscious and create energetic boundaries that wealth cannot cross. The subconscious is not moral or intellectual. It is obedient. It does not choose beliefs. It accepts whatever is repeated, emotionalized, or exposed during vulnerable states. This is why financial trauma, family patterns, cultural beliefs, and early emotional experiences shape the adult mind so strongly. Most people are not living according to what they want. They are living according to what they absorbed. To transcend this, one must become more conscious of the beliefs that operate silently below awareness. Without awareness, there is no transformation. One of the most critical principles Bob Proctor taught is that the subconscious mind can only be changed through impression, not through logic. Logic changes thoughts. Impression changes identity. Identity is what manifests. The subconscious accepts new identity through repetition, visualization, sensory experience, emotional reinforcement, and aligned action. When these factors combine, the subconscious rewrites itself. And once identity shifts, reality has no choice but to follow, because external life can only reflect internal identity. Now consider how the quantum field operates. The quantum field does not deliver based on linear time, physical logic, or probability. It delivers based on frequency. Every possibility already exists as potential. Wealth, abundance, prosperity, and success are not created. They are selected. You are not building wealth. You are tuning into it. You are not chasing abundance. You are matching it. You are not convincing the universe. You are aligning with it. In the quantum model, the future is not built step by step. The future is chosen through vibrational coherence. When coherence is achieved, reality shifts quickly, sometimes instantly, because consciousness dictates matter, not the reverse. This explains why sudden breakthroughs, unexpected opportunities, miraculous shifts, and accelerated manifestations occur when someone releases internal resistance. Resistance is the only delay. The speed of manifestation is directly proportional to the level of alignment. But alignment requires surrender. Not surrender to passivity, but surrender to inner certainty. When you need something, you signal lack. When you fear something, you signal separation. When you chase something, you signal that it is missing. Wealth is not attracted to the energy of desperation. It is attracted to the energy of sufficiency, calm expectation, and embodied worthiness. The most powerful manifestors do not chase, they embody. To embody, one must live mentally in the reality they have chosen, regardless of current circumstances. This is not delusion, it is creation. Delusion ignores reality, creation transcends it. When imagination becomes emotionally real, the subconscious accepts it. When the subconscious accepts it, vibration calibrates to it. When vibration calibrates, the quantum field organizes around it. This is the architecture of manifestation. There is also a crucial yet often ignored concept. Wealth must become emotionally safe. Many people think they want wealth, but subconsciously fear the consequences. Fear blocks frequency. Someone might fear criticism, responsibility, exposure, loss, or the unknown. Until wealth becomes safe, the mind will reject it. Therefore, the goal is not simply to want wealth, it is to become emotionally compatible with it. Compatibility requires rewriting the emotional association with wealth. When wealth becomes associated with freedom instead of fear, impact instead of judgment, joy instead of stress, purpose instead of pressure, alignment instead of loss, then the subconscious opens the gateway to abundance. This transformation is not intellectual, it is emotional and vibrational. The process requires persistence, but not struggle, repetition, but not force. The subconscious changes gradually at first, then suddenly. This mirrors the quantum leap principle: slow internal saturation, followed by rapid external rearrangement. When the internal frequency reaches critical mass, external shift appears instantaneous. What looks like overnight success is actually the final moment of internal alignment meeting external reality. This is why you must measure progress not by external results, but by internal shifts. When gratitude replaces fear, identity replaces doubt, expectation replaces hope, emotional certainty replaces waiting, and embodiment replaces wishing, manifestation is inevitable. Because wealth is not the final goal, expansion is. Money is simply the evidence that your inner state has reached a frequency of abundance, alignment, contribution, clarity, and self-worth. You came to this life not to accumulate money, but to expand consciousness. Wealth is the natural expression of expanded consciousness. There comes a moment in human evolution where the individual stops believing that the mind is only a container of thoughts and begins to realize that it is, in fact, the architect of all matter, the blueprint of experience, the station that broadcasts and receives from the infinite quantum field of intelligence. At this point, the person no longer searches for wealth as an external possession, but understands it as a frequency that must first be embodied internally. Quantum abundance is not about effort, luck, or circumstances. It is about the internal permission to align with the invisible laws that orchestrate everything that exists. You don't attract what you want because wanting is lack. You attract what you have integrated into the deepest layer of your identity. The subconscious mind never gives you what you beg for. It gives you what you have accepted as your non-negotiable truth. The universe doesn't respond to your dreams, it responds to your self-image. This is the foundation that most people ignore while chasing techniques, strategies, affirmations, goals, and visualizations without first embodying the identity capable of holding the manifestation. A poor identity will sabotage a rich result. A scarcity-based nervous system cannot sustain abundance because abundance demands energetic safety, not anxious craving. This is why Earl Nightingale used to teach that the human mind becomes what it constantly thinks about, while Bob Proctor expanded by stating that the subconscious controls 96% of behavior and therefore controls results, not conscious desires. Combining both teachings reveals the hidden code. Thought determines direction, subconscious determines outcome. You can consciously say, "I want to be rich." But if your subconscious blueprint says, "Money is dangerous, I'm not worthy, wealth is for others, success leads to loss or abandonment," then your vibration cancels your vision. The subconscious always wins. This is the exact reason why many people try journaling, visualization, and positive thinking, but still experience the same repeated cycles. Different goals, same results, new attempts, same emotional endings. They don't need more motivation. They need a subconscious restructuring. Before quantum wealth appears externally, it must become emotionally normal internally. The nervous system must feel safe receiving money, holding money, multiplying money, and being seen as wealthy. Without this emotional permission, the subconscious will create invisible resistance, procrastination, sabotage, impulsive spending, quitting right before success, toxic relationships, unnecessary emergencies, or unexplained fear and guilt every time an opportunity appears. The person believes they lack discipline or luck, but in truth, they lack subconscious congruence. Wealth is a state of congruence, not accumulation. When internal frequency and external intention match, manifestation becomes a natural consequence. The subconscious does not respond to logic, arguments, or wishes. It responds to repetition, emotional intensity, and experience. This is why trauma becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. If a child grows up watching stress around money, arguments, scarcity, debt, or fear, the subconscious forms a meaning. Money is tension, danger, or separation. As an adult, that person may consciously want success, but subconsciously desire emotional safety. So the mind pushes away the very thing it claims to want, because emotional safety has higher priority than external achievement. To break this, the seeker must rewrite emotional associations, not force new affirmations. Change is not about saying new sentences. It is about installing a new subconscious experience. Wealth must feel emotionally familiar rather than distant or threatening. You must mentally live inside the version of yourself that already possesses abundance until it becomes your most natural perspective. The quantum field responds not to imagination alone, but to identity plus emotional embodiment. You cannot manifest a reality that you are not neurologically wired to perceive as normal. Poverty becomes a loop when scarcity feels familiar and abundance feels foreign. The mind always returns to what it believes is home. Therefore, the greatest work is to shift internal home, not external goals. When wealth becomes the emotional baseline, the subconscious unlocks opportunities that were previously invisible. The person perceives options, ideas, strategies, partnerships, and doors that existed all along, but were filtered out by psychological blindness. Wealth is not created. It is tuned into. Your subconscious is a quantum GPS, and it does not take you to the destination you admire, but to the destination you identify with. Identity is not who you are consciously. It is who you are automatically. To transform identity, you must leave behind the emotional addiction to limitation. Many people do not realize that the subconscious becomes chemically addicted to the emotions it repeats: scarcity, fear, shame, guilt, frustration, procrastination, doubt, and self-minimization. These emotional patterns become familiar biochemical states, and the brain prefers familiarity over evolution. This is why the unknown future produces fear, even if it is better. The mind prefers predictable suffering over uncertain expansion. Quantum wealth demands a leap of identity rather than a climb of effort. You do not upgrade gradually. You install the new version entirely. You step out of who you were and assume the vibration of who you are becoming. This is the meaning of a quantum jump, collapsing timelines between desire and embodiment. When identity changes, habits change effortlessly. Because identity drives decision, energy, and perception. A person who is wealthy in identity behaves differently from someone who is trying to become wealthy. One acts from abundance, the other from insufficiency. Abundance requires embodiment, and embodiment begins with subconscious acceptance. Speak to your subconscious through emotion, repetition, imagination, and aligned action. Don't try to convince it, let it feel. Build safety around money, success, visibility, responsibility, and expansion. Let wealth is natural for me become truth, not strategy. When the subconscious accepts wealth, the universe mirrors it effortlessly. When an individual starts to understand that the subconscious mind is not merely a mental archive of memories, but the operating system that projects reality, then money is no longer approached as a goal, but as a frequency-based phenomenon. You do not chase wealth, you calibrate yourself to it. Everything in the universe exists as energy vibrating at different frequencies, from matter to thought, from emotion to intention, from belief to identity. Life is not happening randomly. It is always matching frequency with frequency, meaning with manifestation, identity with outcome, subconscious certainty with visible expression. The law is not personal, it is precise. It is not emotional, it is mechanical. It does not reward desire. It responds to internal law. Frequency is the language of creation. The subconscious mind is the frequency generator. To shift your wealth frequency, you must abandon the illusion that money is hard, rare, limited, or dependent on external conditions. Scarcity is not a universal law, it is a mental pattern. The universe is infinitely abundant, constantly expanding, never diminishing, always renewing itself, and forever presenting new possibilities, new forms, new channels, and new pathways. Energy never stops flowing. The only limitation is the receiver's capacity to tune into what already exists. There is no shortage of opportunity. There is shortage of alignment. People fail not because there is no wealth available, but because their subconscious blueprint is not wired to interpret, recognize, trust, act, or sustain wealth. Wealth is not rare, alignment is. Earl Nightingale stated that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, meaning that success is not in the material achievement, but in the internal alignment and movement toward purpose. Bob Proctor explained that the secret is not learning, but unlearning, removing mental programming that contradicts abundance. Therefore, quantum wealth is achieved not by acquisition, but by purification. You do not add what you lack, you remove what blocks. The wealth code is not constructed. It is uncovered from beneath layers of conditioning, fear, guilt, inherited beliefs, religious imprints, emotional trauma, cultural narratives, and subconscious loyalty to familiar limitation. The subconscious mind operates like a thermostat. It always regulates your life experience back to the temperature you believe is safe. If your subconscious wealth temperature is low, any rise in financial success triggers internal alarms that lead to sabotage or regression. This explains why many people temporarily achieve better income, but soon lose it and return to their past level. Not due to financial incompetence, but due to psychological equilibrium. They were not expanded enough to hold the higher frequency of abundance. Wealth requires energetic expansion. Money requires psychological capacity. This is the reason why people who suddenly earn more money without upgrading identity experience anxiety, guilt, confusion, and unconscious sabotage. The problem is not that they earned too much too fast. The problem is that their subconscious identity did not evolve quickly enough to sustain it. Money amplifies identity, not security. A person programmed for scarcity will convert abundance into scarcity again. A person programmed for wealth will convert even scarcity into abundance again. The difference is not in conditions but in consciousness. Identity is the magnet. Belief is the frequency. Emotion is the fuel. Imagination is the blueprint. Action is the permission. Repetition is the installer. And environment is the stabilizer. Wealth is created when these elements form an energetic trinity. Identity that matches desire, emotion that reinforces belief, and environment that supports expansion. Remove one, and the structure collapses. This is why many people who attempt to transform their financial life fail. They change action, but not identity, or identity but not environment, or belief, but not emotional safety. Quantum wealth requires inner wholeness, not isolated effort. The subconscious mind only accepts what is repeated with enough emotional endorsement to feel true. Logic does not rewrite identity. Affirmations spoken without emotional charge are wasted sound. The subconscious mind is accessed through intense mental imagery, repetitive exposure, immersive emotional experience, and aligned behavior. You must feel wealth before you see wealth. You must believe with your nervous system, not only with your mind. If the body does not feel safe with abundance, wealth becomes a threat instead of a gift. Money responds to energy, not to intellectual wishes. Emotional safety is the rarest element in manifestation and the most powerful. If money is associated with fear, shame, failure, pressure, betrayal, or abandonment, then the subconscious rejects wealth to protect survival. Wealth must become associated with peace, expansion, purpose, contribution, and internal sovereignty. When the subconscious unites money with meaning, manifestation becomes effortless. Wealth becomes natural, not forced. Life stops being about money and begins to be about becoming. The quantum wealthy individual understands that money is not the reward. Consciousness is. The bank account is merely the physical indicator that internal truth has become stabilized. The moment wealth becomes normal rather than exceptional, familiar rather than intimidating, internal rather than external, the subconscious mind integrates it as part of self-image. At that moment, wealth stops being a future dream and becomes a present identity. And identity always manifests. Every result is identity expressing itself through behavior and energy. That is why you must not ask, "How do I get rich?" but instead, what kind of person naturally attracts, receives, multiplies, and sustains wealth? That is the true question. Wealth is not a destination, it is a personality upgrade. If you become the person who matches wealth, wealth becomes inevitable. If you remain the person who matches scarcity, scarcity remains inevitable. The individual who wishes to transform their financial destiny must begin by understanding that nothing in their external world can change until the internal script that governs their identity has been rewritten at the quantum level. Wealth does not respond to effort, time, intelligence, talent, luck, or even education. It responds to internal alignment with infinite supply. Most people do not lack ability. They lack inner permission. They do not struggle because abundance is far away. They struggle because mentally, emotionally, and energetically, they are still married to scarcity. They have developed emotional loyalty to limitation, and identity loyalty always outweighs intellectual ambition. The universe never denies abundance. The subconscious mind never denies identity. Therefore, when desire contradicts identity, identity wins without negotiation. You cannot outperform your inner programming. You cannot live beyond your self-image. This is why people who read books, listen to seminars, repeat affirmations, and try new businesses still experience the same results. They are changing the conscious surface, while the subconscious foundation remains unchanged. Conscious goals are temporary. Subconscious identity is permanent until reprogrammed. A person will always return to what feels internally familiar, even if it is painful, limiting, or destructive, because the subconscious prioritizes familiarity over expansion. Reprogramming the subconscious mind must therefore be approached as a deep emotional and energetic operation, not an intellectual exercise. true transformation requires the merging of new identity with felt emotional experience, the dissolving of old beliefs through repetition and emotional release, and the installation of new patterns through imagery, embodiment, and aligned action. The subconscious mind learns through intensity, meaning, symbolism, repetition, emotion, and experiential confirmation. When a new belief becomes emotionally true, it becomes energetically active. When it becomes energetically active, it begins to operate as the new default frequency. When it becomes the default frequency, reality begins to reorganize itself around the new inner pattern. It is impossible for an individual to hold wealth while feeling unworthy. Worthiness is the internal key that unlocks abundance. Many people intellectually want money but subconsciously feel undeserving of ease, prosperity, safety, or admiration. They fear judgment, responsibility, jealousy, loss, betrayal, or exposure. They associate abundance with danger rather than security. And because the subconscious mind protects survival above all else, it blocks the manifestation of anything associated with emotional risk. Wealth is not blocked by lack of opportunity, but by inner emotional associations. The moment wealth becomes emotionally safe, it becomes energetically available. Emotional safety with abundance requires the redefinition of money from a symbol of stress, competition, ego, and inequality into a symbol of expansion, contribution, freedom, purpose, and self-actualization. When money becomes a tool for awakening, generosity, alignment, and greatness, then the subconscious welcomes it because it reinforces the soul's calling instead of opposing it. Earl Nightingale taught that a person becomes what he thinks about. Bob Proctor expanded this saying, "A person becomes what their subconscious accepts as truth." So the question is not, what do you want, but what do you believe you are? Identity is destiny, belief is frequency, emotion is magnetism, and action is solidity. The individual must understand that rewriting identity requires stepping out of passive observation and into deliberate authorship. Most people are readers of life. Few are writers of destiny. Most wait to feel confident before acting, not realizing that action comes first, and confidence is created from experience. Confidence is the memory of actions aligned with desire. Power emerges from movement, not contemplation. To reprogram the subconscious, you must act according to the identity you are becoming, not the identity you have been. You must condition your nervous system to interpret abundance as normal, not extraordinary. You must behave in alignment with your future, not your history. You must make decisions from your desired identity, not from your wounded identity. Every decision is a vote for the identity you are creating or the identity you are maintaining. Decisions create patterns. Patterns create habits. Habits create identity. Identity creates destiny. If you wish to accelerate wealth manifestation, you must shorten the gap between desire and aligned action. Not reckless action, but intuitive action rooted in resonance. You must learn to recognize inner resonance as higher intelligence. Logic is the language of the conscious mind, but resonance is the language of the quantum field. Wealth does not emerge from what makes sense, but from what feels aligned and true. Quantum manifestation is not linear, it is magnetic. Your environment must also become congruent with your new identity, not only physically, but vibrationally. You cannot build a wealthy frequency while surrounding yourself with voices that normalize limitation. You cannot expand while participating in conversations that shrink your vision. You cannot elevate while emotionally bonding with people who glorify struggle. You cannot rewire your subconscious for abundance while consuming content that praises sacrifice, fear, economic instability, or victimhood. You must intentionally curate your surroundings, both digital and physical, because the subconscious mind absorbs without filtering. The mind becomes what it repeatedly touches. Transformation, therefore, involves 3 layers. Releasing the old identity with compassion, installing the new identity with repetition and immersion, and stabilizing the new identity through aligned behavior and strategic environment. One day, without fanfare, the new version of you becomes normal. The old version of you becomes foreign, distant, almost unreal. And that is when wealth arrives, not with shock, but with recognition. Because the moment you become the person who already has it, receiving it is no longer a miracle but a natural progression. Money, at this stage, stops feeling like a goal and becomes a reflection. The physical echo of inner coherence. You begin to notice synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, accelerated momentum, faster manifestation, increased magnetism, and a deeper sense of purpose. You no longer chase, force, or pressure. You attract, align, and allow. The universe responds not because you demanded, but because you finally matched the resonance of abundance. What once felt far now feels inevitable. Wealth becomes less about obtaining and more about expanding. Less about proving and more about embodying. Less about receiving and more about expressing. This is the state of quantum wealth flow, effortless alignment, natural reciprocity, emotional safety, grounded power, expanded identity, and unconditional worthiness. And from this state, the question is no longer, how do I attract money? But how much impact, meaning freedom, and contribution can I now create through wealth? For the individual who transcends survival, money becomes a sacred instrument of evolution, not only personal, but collective. When consciousness evolves, wealth becomes service, and in that paradox, abundance multiplies endlessly. There comes a moment in every journey of transformation when the individual realizes that the true battle was never with money, circumstances, opportunities, or the external world at all. It was with the invisible architecture of their own consciousness. What we call reality is merely the projection of an internal pattern. And until that pattern is rearranged at the quantum level, life continues replaying the same scenes, the same emotions, the same outcomes, and the same limitations. But once the inner world is rewritten, the outer world bends with absolute precision to match it. That is the hidden mechanism behind all wealth, all success, and all expansion. Consciousness first, reality second. As you reach this stage of integration, something extraordinary begins to occur within you. The tensions that once defined your relationship with money, fear, pressure, resistance, insecurity, doubt, begin to dissolve like smoke in sunlight. Wealth stops being something you pursue and becomes something you allow. You stop trying to earn abundance and begin to accept it as the natural state of a mind harmonized with the universe. You recognize that the energy that breathes through galaxies also breathes through you, and that the creative intelligence that holds stars in orbit is the same intelligence that responds instantly to your beliefs, your assumptions, your emotional currents, and your persistent self-image. The subconscious, once a mystery, now becomes your most trusted ally. You begin to feel the subtle shifts within it, the quiet rearranging of emotional associations, the fading of old fears, the loosening of inherited insecurities, the softening of long-held limitations. The inner space that once felt tight, constrained, or guarded begins to open, expand, and breathe. You become less reactive, more intentional. You stop questioning whether you deserve abundance and instead begin asking how far you can go with it. Worthiness becomes your default emotional setting, and with worthiness comes receptivity. With receptivity comes expansion, and with expansion comes the effortless flow of wealth that once seemed distant or impossible. You now recognize that abundance is not granted. It is mirrored. The universe is not selective, it is reflective. It does not choose favorites, it reveals frequencies. The person who expects little receives little because their vibrational blueprint leaves no space for more. The person who fears wealth repels it because they unconsciously associate abundance with loss, exposure, or danger. But the person who cultivates inner safety, inner worthiness, inner power, and inner clarity becomes a magnetic force capable of bending reality in their favor. Not through control, but through coherence, not through force, but through alignment. As your mental patterns stabilize into this higher identity, life begins to rearrange itself with astonishing speed. Opportunities that once required effort now arrive through serendipity. Ideas that once felt forced now emerge with crystal clarity. People who resonate with your new frequency begin to appear in your life, while those attached to your old reality naturally drift away. Financial openings multiply. Promotions, clients, partnerships, insights, strategies, synchronicities, unexpected flows of money. All because the field is responding to your internal calibration. You are no longer a participant trapped inside the old narrative. You are the author of a new one. At this point, the quantum principles that once felt abstract now become embodiments of your daily experience. You feel the power of assumption. You feel the mechanics of emotional imprinting. You feel the magnetic pull of aligned identity. You feel the speed at which the universe reorganizes around decisiveness, clarity, and unwavering belief. You understand truly that reality is not something happening to you. It is something happening from you. The creative process no longer feels mystical. It feels inevitable. You no longer ask, "Will this work?" You understand that it must work, because the universe has no choice but to reflect your state of being. And now, with this power fully awakened, you begin to feel a deeper calling. A desire not only to attract wealth, but to embody the consciousness that sustains it indefinitely. Wealth without consciousness evaporates. Wealth without identity collapses. Wealth without emotional alignment sabotages itself. But wealth rooted in a conscious, expanded, aligned identity becomes permanent, stable, and ever-growing. It becomes an expression of who you are, not something separate that you fear losing. It becomes your natural environment. This is the moment where you cross from survival into creation, from scarcity into sovereignty, from limitation into mastery. You realize that the external world cannot intimidate a mind that recognizes its own creative authority. You stop living as a reactor to circumstances and begin living as a generator of reality. You carry yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with certainty, not with superiority, but with mastery, not with ego, but with peace. A quiet, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you are no longer controlled by old patterns, but supported by universal intelligence. This final evolution is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with fireworks or revelation. Instead, it arrives quietly, like dawn. A calm knowing that the version of you who struggled, questioned, hesitated, and doubted no longer exists. The old self has dissolved into memory. The new self stands rooted in an entirely different vibration. And from this vibration, wealth is not an achievement. It is an atmosphere, not an outcome, but an echo, not a result, but a reflection. You have become the field, and the field always responds. As this realization settles into your spirit, the world around you begins to take on a new texture, more alive, more fluid, more cooperative, more responsive. You no longer feel separated from possibility. You are immersed in it. The boundaries between desire and manifestation grow thin. Time compresses. Momentum accelerates. You step into your days not wondering what will happen, but deciding what will unfold. You speak with intention. You choose with precision. You direct your energy with clarity, and the universe moves with you. This is the true quantum state, the merging of identity, intention, emotion, and energy into one aligned frequency that bends physical reality in its direction. And now that you have awakened this within yourself, you carry a power that cannot be taken, disrupted, or diminished. A power that grows each time you trust it. A power that multiplies each time you act from it. A power that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, simply because your consciousness has expanded beyond the limits you once obeyed. Wealth is no longer something you hope for. Wealth is now something you are. Earl Nightingale called this the strangest secret, that we become what we think about. Bob Proctor deepened it. We become what our subconscious accepts. And now you have stepped into the realization behind both, that when the mind, emotion, and identity are in resonance, wealth is not only possible, it is inevitable. You are no longer the seeker. You have become the source. And from this source, abundance flows without end.